Hello, my name is Chiso and I am reading Master Dōgen's Shōbōgenzō. And we have reached chapter 48, Sesshin-sessho, Expounding the Mind and Expounding the Nature. Setsu means teach, explain or expound, Shin means mind, and Sho means the essence or the nature. So Sesshin means expounding the mind, and Sessho means expounding the nature. Some Chinese Buddhist monks asserted that expounding the mind and expounding the nature belong within the sphere of intellectual effort, and so to make such effort to explain the mind and essence is not only unnecessary, but also detrimental to attainment of the Buddhist truth. They believed that the Buddhist truth could never embrace intellectual understanding. Master Dōgen had a different opinion. He thought that the concepts Sesshin and Sessho in Buddhist thought refer to something much more real. He understood Sesshin-sessho as the manifestation of the mind and the manifestation of the nature in the real world. Master Dōgen saw no reason to deny the concepts Sesshin and Sessho. Instead, he used them to explain the fundamental theory of Buddhism. Okay, let's crack on. While Zen Master Shinzan Sumitsu is walking with Great Master Tozan Gohon, Great Master Gohon points to a nearby temple and says, "Inside there is someone expounding the mind and expounding the nature." His elder brother Sumitsu says, "Who is it?" Great Master Gohon says, "Being asked one question by you, elder brother, I have directly attained the state of having died completely." Brother Sumitsu says, "That concrete state of expounding the mind and expounding the nature is who?" Great Master Gohon says, "In death I have come alive." Expounding the mind and expounding the nature are the universal basis of the Buddha's truth, by virtue of which every Buddha and every patriarch is realized. Unless there is expounding the mind and expounding the nature, Buddhas and patriarchs do not turn the splendid wheel of Dharma, do not establish the mind and undergo training, and do not realize the truth simultaneously with the whole earth and all sentient beings. And all living beings do not realize the state of being without Buddha nature. Picking up a flower and winking an eye are expounding the mind and expounding the nature. A face breaking into a smile is expounding the mind and expounding the nature. Doing prostrations and standing in place are expounding the mind and expounding the nature. The ancestral master's entry into Liang, that's Master Bodhidharma entering China, is expounding the mind and expounding the nature. And the transmission of the robe in the middle of the night is expounding the mind and expounding the nature. Holding up a staff is just expounding the mind and expounding the nature. Laying down a whisk is just expounding the mind and expounding the nature. In sum, the virtues which each Buddha and each patriarch has are all just expounding the mind and expounding the nature. There is expounding the mind and expounding the nature by normality, meaning the normal mind or the everyday mind. And there is expounding the mind and expounding the nature by fences, walls, tiles and pebbles. Moments when the truth is realized that the arising of mind is the arising of miscellaneous real dharmas, and the truth is realized that the passing of mind is the passing of miscellaneous real dharmas, are all moments when the mind is expounding and moments when the nature is expounding. Nevertheless, ordinary folk who do not penetrate the mind and do not master the nature, in their ignorance, not knowing expounding the mind and expounding the nature, and not knowing discussion of the profound and discussion of the fine, say, and teach to others of the fine. And teach to... I've got lost in this sentence. Nevertheless, ordinary folk who do not penetrate the mind and do not master the nature, in their ignorance, not expounding the mind and expounding the nature, and not knowing discussion of the profound and discussion of the fine, say, and teach to others, that the truth of the Buddhist patriarchs should not include these things. Because they do not know expounding the mind and expounding the nature as expounding the mind and expounding the nature, they think of expounding the mind and expounding the nature as expounding about the mind and expounding about the nature. They think that real manifestation of the mind and the nature, which is done by action itself, means explanation, intellectual explanation, footnote. And this is mainly because they do not think critically about whether or not they have penetrated the great truth. Lately, a certain Soko, titled Zen Master Daiyi of Kinzan Mountain, has said, "Because people today like to expound about the mind and expound about the nature, and they like to discuss the profound and discuss the fine, they are slow in attaining the truth. When we have simply thrown away the duality of mind and nature and forgotten both the profound and the fine, so that dualistic forms do not arise, then we really experience the state." This is the insistence of one who has never known the thoughts of the Buddhist patriarchs and has never heard of the royal lineage of the Buddhist patriarchs. As a result, because he understands that the mind is only thinking, sensing, mindfulness and realization, but does not understand that thinking, sensing, mindfulness and realization are the mind, he speaks like this. Wrongly imagining the nature to be only clear, calm, peaceful and quiet, he does not know the existence and non-existence of the Buddha nature and the Dharma nature, and he has never seen the nature as it is, even in a dream. Therefore, he has formed such a distorted view of the Buddha Dharma. Lots of footnotes. Buddha nature, see chapter 22, Busho. Dharma nature, see chapter 54, Hosho. Nature as it is appears in the Lotus Sutra, and that's it. The mind that Buddhist patriarchs express is skin, flesh, bones and marrow. The nature that Buddhist patriarchs retain is a bamboo cane and a staff. The profound that Buddhist patriarchs uniformly experience is outdoor pillars and stone lanterns. Uniformly experience, shokai, means pledge, promise, accord or binding agreement, and by extension the state which is exactly the same as the state of Gautama Buddha. And the fine that Buddhist patriarchs discuss is wisdom and understanding. Buddhist patriarchs, who are really Buddhist patriarchs from the beginning, hear in action, expound in action, practice in action, and experience in action this state of the mind and the nature. They retain and learn in action this state of the profound and the fine. People in the state like this are called children and grandchildren who are learning the Buddhist patriarchs. Who are learning the Buddhist patriarchs, right? Those who are not like this are not learning the truth. For this reason, when it is time to attain the truth, they do not attain the truth, and when it is time to go beyond attainment of the truth, they are not beyond attainment of the truth. They stumble through times of both attainment and non-attainment. The words, to forget the duality of mind and nature, which that fellow Soko has spoken, are a partial attempt to expound the mind, 100,000th, 10,000th or 100,000,000th of a part. To speak of throwing away the profound and the fine is a partial attempt to discuss the profound and the fine. When, not having learned this pivotal point, he stupidly speaks of forgetting, he thinks it means something leaving the hands. He understands that it means something having departed from the body. To be conscious that something has gone is not to have forgotten about it. Footnote. He has not let go of the limited thinking of the small vehicle, so how could he penetrate the inner depths of the great vehicle? And how much less could he know the pivotal matter of the ascendant state? The words of Master Obaku Kaiun discussed at length by Master Dōgen in the final paragraph of chapter 28, Butsu Koji Noji. It is hard to say that he has tasted tea and meals of a Buddhist patriarch. To work earnestly under a teacher is to investigate physically, in the very moment of the body-mind, and is to investigate in experience, both the nature and after the body. Nothing other than expounding the mind and expounding the nature. Sorry, I lost that a bit. Footnote: Shinsen-shingo, before the body and after the mind, suggests intuitive reflection immediately preceding and following an action. At the same time, it suggests endless continuation of Buddhist effort in eternity. I'll read that sentence again. It is hard to say that he has tasted the tea and meals of a Buddhist patriarch. To work earnestly under a teacher is to investigate physically in the very moment of the body-mind, and is to investigate in experience both before the body and after the body, nothing other than expounding the mind and expounding the nature. There is no second or third different example at all. Let's read a bit more. Thereupon, the first patriarch says to the second patriarch, Master Bodhidharma says to Master Taisho Ika, if you just let external involvement cease and have no panting and gasping in your mind will be like fences and walls, and you will be able to enter the truth. The second patriarch makes various efforts to expound the mind and expound the nature, but always fails to experience the state. One day he suddenly attains reflection. At length he addresses the first patriarch. This time, for the first time, the disciple has let involvement cease. The first patriarch, knowing that the other is already in the state of realization, does not examine him closely, but only says, "You have not realized cessation, have you?" Second patriarch says, "No." The first patriarch says, "What is the disciple's situation?" The second patriarch says, "I am always recognizing it very clearly, therefore I cannot express it with words." The first patriarch says, "That is just the substance of the mind transmitted by the Buddhas and the patriarchs of the past. Now you have got it. You yourself must guard it well." There are those who doubt this story and those who quote it. Among the stories of how the second patriarch served the first patriarch, one story is like this. The second patriarch tried persistently to expound the mind and expound the nature, and at first his state did not match the state. But he gradually accumulated merit and heaped up virtue until he finally attained the first patriarch's state of truth. Common and stupid people have interpreted this as follows. When at first the second patriarch expounded the mind and expounded the nature, but did not experience the state, the fault was in the expounding of the mind and expounding of the nature. Later, when he abandoned expounding the mind and expounding the nature, he experienced the state. They speak like this because they have not mastered the teaching that, with minds like fences and walls, we are able to enter the truth. They are especially ignorant of stages in learning the truth. The reason I say so is this. From the time we establish the body-mind, Bodhi-mind, and direct ourselves towards training in the way of Buddha, we sincerely practice difficult practices. And at that time, though we keep practicing, in 100 efforts we never hit the target once. Nevertheless, sometimes following good counselors and sometimes following the sutras, we gradually become able to hit the target. One hit of the target now is by virtue of hundreds of misses in the past. It is one maturation of hundreds of misses. Listening to the teachings, training in the truth, and attaining the state of experience are all like this. Even though yesterday's attempts to expound the mind and to expound the nature were 100 misses, the 100 missed attempts to expound the mind and to expound the nature yesterday are suddenly a hit today. When we are beginners in practicing the Buddha way, even though due to training we have not mastered the way, we can never attain the Buddha way by abandoning the Buddha way and pursuing other ways. It is hard for people who have not mastered the whole process of Buddhist training to clarify this situation as a fact. The Buddha way, at the time of the first establishment of the will, is the Buddha way, and at the time of realization of the right state of truth, it is the Buddha way. The beginning, the middle, and the end are each the Buddha way. It is like someone walking 1,000 miles. The first step is one in 1,000 miles, and the 1,000th step is 1 in 1,000 miles. Though the first step and the 1,000th step are different, the 1,000 miles are the same. Nevertheless, extremely stupid people think that when we are learning the Buddha way, we have not arrived at the Buddha way. They think that it is the Buddha way only in the time beyond realization of the effect. They are like this because they do not know that the whole way is expounding of the way. They do not know that the whole way is practice of the way. And they do not know that the whole way is experience of the way. Those who understand that only deluded people realize the great state of realization through Buddhist training, and who neither know nor hear that people who are not deluded also... I'm going to have to start the sentence again. Those who understand that only deluded people realize the great state of realization through Buddhist training, and who neither know nor hear that people who are not deluded also realize the great state of realization through Buddhist training, express the thoughts described above. Even before experience of the state, expounding the mind and expounding the nature is the Buddha way. At the same time, it is by expounding the mind and expounding the nature that we experience the state. We should not learn that experiencing the state describes only a deluded person's first realization of the great state of realization. People in the state of delusion realize the great realization. People in the state of realization realize the great realization. People who are beyond realization realize the great realization. People who are beyond delusion realize the great realization. And people who are experiencing the state experience the state. Thus, to expound the mind and expound the nature is to be straight and true in the Buddha way. Not having mastered this truth, Soko says that we should not expound the mind and expound the nature, but his words are not a truth of the Buddha Dharma. In the great kingdom of Sung today, no one has arrived even at Soko's level. Tough stuff. Great. Right. We will continue with this, but not tomorrow. We're going to do something different tomorrow because I am receiving Tokudo, the ceremony where I become a monk. So instead, I'm going to record that ceremony and put that up as tomorrow's thing. And then we'll go back to Sesshin-sessho tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Do take care.